I guess, how can you get the next question? How can you tell if people really get your ideas? Now, there's a damn good question. But ever since I heard that one, I've been thinking about how will John answer this one.
Well, I've got a couple thoughts there.
I never had been able to figure it out. So, okay. Well, tell me.
I'll give you the most obvious, but probably less central one first. Well, I watch people work and I see what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And I pay certainly more attention to that than I would somebody telling me I'm following your way and I know it. But the other one is the one that I think really would count to me. When I hear somebody say, it's not just my therapy, my life has been changed since I worked this way. Or I see a lot of things differently now all over.
Mm-hmm.
Then I usually think they've got it.
Okay, I guess I can buy that. Certainly, watching them work, you can usually, certainly tell when they haven't got the idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's usually very clear, very early on in the session. And they just don't have the idea, and then I get pretty hopeless sometimes. That, oh shit, they'll never get the idea. I jump to that conclusion sometimes long before I should.
Well, then you're in for a surprise later on if you can recognize it.
Well, usually the boss will straighten me out eventually. Yeah. But it often goes the other way as well, I must tell you. But anyway.
But my answer is based on the fact that what we do specifically in therapy is based on a different way of looking at behavior. And if somebody catches on that it's not just something in the room, that is a number one sign to me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, number 7, I guess. Which of your own pieces of writing do you think has had the most impact?
Oh
on the
boy, that's another one of those questions that is hard to answer because you don't have much of that kind of information. I would say that I don't really get all that much feedback, particularly about specific pieces of work. Just the other day I was reading something in Family Systems Medicine that started out by making some reference to a paper I wrote nearly 20 years ago on family somatics.
Mm-hmm.
And
I remember that paper.
And I thought, isn't that wonderful? Somebody actually read it.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have very little direct feedback, but little information may be based on what sells and what doesn't sell, what either gets reprinted or people write in for copies of it, and so the best I can do is give a couple points based on that very scanty sort of information. Obviously, I think that the original Bateson paper on toward a theory was very influential, although I think it was very largely misunderstood.
Yes.
That's a hell of a mixed blessing.
Yeah.
Change, certainly. Brief therapy focused problem resolution, our first joint paper out of the project, got quite a lot of attention. A lot of people wrote for reprints, even though it took me 2 years to get the thing published.
Yes.
And I would say that I've heard from a fair number of people that they got a lot out of tactics.
So I was thinking about this, and also And what I think of is, this probably surprised you, is double-blind and three-party interaction, where I think that, in fact, you invent family therapy at that point by bringing Papa in. It's the first mention of father in the literature.
Well, I hadn't thought of it that way until now, but I'll take it.
I suppose it's because you have been being one that you recognize he was missing other things. But as I see it, that formulation from that paper, again, it's had a big influence. Although it may be that very few people actually read it, but it's not cited like it should be.
Let me ask you something. Is your experience similar or different? That is, do you find flocks of people come up to you and cite specific things that you have written and say, that changed my life, sort of thing? Or is this, at least in fair part, sort of a question that students would ask that have maybe somewhat inflated views of what happens when you write something?
Oh, I guess my experience is much like yours, that you can only base it on sales, so to speak, or papers that get requests for reprints. And certainly from mine, the Death of Resistance, and then the focus solution development paper. Those two get more requests. Then the early one, the first one in Family Process, that still gets some requests. The Brief Therapy 2's company or 3's company, whatever it was called.
I guess at one point I had sort of an image that, God, I write these wonderful things. A week after it appears in print, I'll get 100 letters specifically about this article.
Right.
Never happens.
No. You might get one or two.
Occasionally.
Yeah. And what's nice is if it's not the same person. For a while, I used to get letters from one person.